What happens when a night meant for laughter and wine spirals into a web of secrets and regret? As Sarah and her best friend share a cozy evening, boundaries blur, and a reckless decision changes everything. When morning comes, the shocking reality of their actions leaves them questioning their choices and fearing the consequences. Will they be able to confront the truth, or will their lives unravel in the wake of a single night? Stay tuned to find out, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more gripping stories. My spouse had left town for a few workdays. The thought of staying home alone didn't appeal to me much. The quiet, the slightest noises echoing through the empty house at night, and the thoughts that filled my mind when I was by myself. To escape from these, I invited my closest friend, Sarah, over. Sarah had been my most trusted friend for years. We could discuss anything together, reminisce about the past, and laugh for hours. That night started just like that. I felt a slight excitement as we opened a bottle of wine in the kitchen for some reason. The atmosphere of the night felt different. Maybe I was enjoying the taste of freedom with my husband away. I felt like I had momentarily forgotten my responsibilities. Sarah and I moved to the living room. I lit some candles and created a cozy atmosphere. We started with innocent conversations, talking about our past relationships, university memories, and our laughter echoed in the night. With every passing hour, wine bottles started to get emptied. The relaxation and lightness inside me were giving way to another feeling. Sarah's eyes were slightly narrowed, careful. She looked at me, twirling her glass in her hand, then she smiled softly and suddenly asked, "Have you ever thought about crossing boundaries?" I stopped and looked at her for a second. Something strange stirred inside me, my heart beating a fraction faster, but I laughed it off because of the effect of alcohol. "What do you mean?" I said, laughing. Sarah shrugged. "Just, shouldn't we question some things? Life is short. Should people always act rationally?" Her words sent a strange tremor inside me. With my slightly intoxicated brain, I thought it was just a conversation, but I remembered nothing of the happenings of the rest of the night. The only thing I knew was that when I opened my eyes in the morning, there was an unrest inside, and our dog, Rex, was holding my husband's watch in his mouth. My head was pounding. It felt like someone was hammering inside my brain. My mouth was dry and there was a strange heaviness in my stomach. I parted my eyelids. The curtains were slightly open and the dim morning light was filtering into the room. The room was a mess. The sheets were scattered, but what really scared me was something else. Someone was lying next to me, Sarah. My breath caught in my throat, my eyes widened, but my body was still motionless. Fragments of memories from the night began to swirl in my mind, laughter, whispers, but everything was blurry. The other side of the bed was in chaos, and I only had a nightgown on. I felt nauseous. "No," I whispered to myself. Sarah stirred, her eyes sleepy. There were no signs of regret on her face. "Last night," I forced myself to talk, my voice trembling. Sarah stopped for a moment, then shook her head a little. "It was a mistake," she said calmly, her voice very calm, as if she said these words just to assure me. Was this really a mistake for her, or was it something else? A trembling ran through me. Sarah's apathy tightened my stomach even more. "What did we do?" I asked in a whisper. "We were drunk, it was part of that time. There is no need to panic," she said. But I felt strangled, as if something got stuck in my neck. Was it just a mistake, or was it an indication that something had started? Just as I was about to ask her what she thought, Rex barked. My eyes quickly turned to the door. Rex was at the entrance to the kitchen, his eyes fixed on us. Usually a calm and obedient dog, he now had his ears pinned back, and his teeth were slightly visible. I felt a strange discomfort inside. Rex was watching us as if he understood something. Can a dog understand what's going on? Rex's eyes pierced my heart like a blade of guilt, and at that moment, I felt that something had gone wrong. What had really happened last night? Rex suddenly barked again and proceeded, his fur standing on end and his eyes fixed on the kitchen corner. A knot formed in my stomach and I felt an indescribable fear. He was always a calm and playful dog, but now he was different, as if he sensed danger. As I stood and was about to find out what was wrong with him, he suddenly came with something in his mouth, a small, shiny object. First, I could not tell what it was. I reached out my hand, but Rex pulled back a little, as if he did not want to give it to me. My heart started beating fast. I spoke slowly, trying to calm him down. "Leave it, boy. Come, show me." Rex's eyes never left me. Then, hesitating, he dropped the object in my palm. At that moment, a cold fear spread through me. This was a watch, but not just any watch. It was my husband's. My blood ran cold, my hands started trembling. Sarah came closer and looked at my hand, and for a moment there was silence. Then her eyes widened. "What is it doing here?" she whispered. I struggled to breathe, my head starting to pound. The watch strap was slightly torn with small scratches on it, but most importantly, it was still working. The battery hadn't run out, which meant it hadn't been there for long. It had just fallen. My stomach churned. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. We had drunk a lot last night, had fun, but I couldn't remember the night clearly. I couldn't even remember when we got home. What if my husband had come back last night? What if we hadn't noticed him coming into the house? What if he had seen us? My stomach tightened and a shiver ran through my whole body. It couldn't be. It was impossible. My husband had left for out of town yesterday morning. I knew that because I had packed his suitcase. But what if he hadn't left? What if he had come back here last night? What if he had been watching us? What if he had seen everything? For a moment our eyes were locked onto each other's. I could sense that she had the same thought, but neither of us dared to verbalize it. She got up without saying a word, and her eyes went toward the kitchen door. Maybe he dropped it this morning, came out her shaky voice, but we both knew that was the most ridiculous lie we had ever heard. I had been married for 6 years and my husband never took his watch off his wrist. It had just dropped here. Something must have happened last night, but what? I closed my eyes and tried to recollect some memories. We had had some wine, laughed together, and then it just became blurry, like a shadow fading from my mind. I seriously tried to remember, but my mind was betraying me. Just then, Rex barked again, and a noise suddenly pierced through from the kitchen. Sarah stepped backward, and I became paralyzed with fear. In the distance, Rex continued to growl low and dangerously. My gaze turned toward the corner of the dark kitchen. There was something there, something or someone. I could see no movement in the kitchen corner, but Rex's growls persisted nonetheless. The unexplained fear was growing out of my anxiety. Behind me, Sarah stood holding her breath, her terrified eyes wide. There was silence for a few seconds. No movement, no sound. However, the atmosphere's very quietness was unnerving. Breathing was difficult for me because of an unseen burden. At that point, Rex was walking beside me as I made my way to the kitchen. I saw a glass as I got closer to the counter. I paused. My husband was the owner of the glass. He always drank water from this glass, which was his favourite. My blood froze, my stomach rumbled. I reached out my hand, my fingers touching the cold glass surface. The glass was damp. In fact, there were still a few drops of water inside, so this glass had been used recently. Sarah approached me breathlessly and stared at the glass. Our eyes met. We were thinking the same thing. Was my husband here? Had he come home last night? Did he see us? Panic gripped my entire body. My knees felt weak. I tried to remember, but nothing was clear. I couldn't remember. I didn't even know when Sarah and I had fallen asleep. What if my husband had come here then? What if he had seen us and quietly left? What if he had just watched and left early in the morning? My stomach tightened. It felt like the world was crashing down on me. It couldn't be. It couldn't be. There was an indescribable fear inside me. This wasn't just the fear of being caught, it was much bigger than that. If my husband had been here and seen everything, why hadn't he said anything? Why hadn't he sent me a message? Or why hadn't he started an argument? Wasn't his silent departure more terrifying? My phone rang at that moment. A cute, vulgar vibration shocked me off my chair. I seized my phone with shaking hands, my heartbeat going wild. I looked at the screen. The message was from my husband. "I'll be home early tonight. Missing you dearly." Ice filled my hands. My fingers squeezed the phone hard, but I couldn't help it. They were shaking. Sarah leaned in quietly to glance at the message and immediately turned pale. It was as if the blood had drained from her face. Rex was still there, staring at me like he knew everything. The panic and guilt raged in me, wrestled with each other. What was I to do? What was I supposed to do? Did my husband not know about his missing watch, or did he know but not tell me? Or was he playing games? The knot in my stomach tied tighter. My mind started to get darker by the minute. Did my husband know what would happen when he came home? Would he question me, or did he have a full picture of everything? Or was he coming back stealthily for revenge? I shuddered. I never thought everything would collapse into such a speedy nightmare. It felt like boiling water was poured over my face. I was afraid, but what gnawed at me most was the unknown, what my husband was thinking. I still had Sarah's panicked voice in my head, telling me that we had to destroy the evidence, that I needed to discard that watch and hide that glass to just pretend that nothing happened. My inner voice said that wouldn't work, but whatever I had done, there was no way out. If he had seen. Growing and dizzying feelings gained more force with each passing minute. Why was that watch here? When did it arrive? And did he really see everything? While pacing slowly around the room, everything was going to turn into a disaster. I felt quickly. I looked around the room, but all things seemed blurred up. Everything seemed complicated and hazardous. How sensible was it to hide that glass, the watch, everything? If my husband had come home and noticed this night, there was no escape. Or maybe this incident was already drawing more attention. I was so tense that I couldn't relax for a moment. My eyes kept glancing into every nook and corner, and all of a sudden, everything seemed to wear the same meaning. Suddenly, I heard Rex barking fiercely. This wasn't normal. Rex was usually a calm dog, but now he was growling strangely. It was as if there was a real threat, and he could sense it. His barking indicated that something was wrong, that something strange was happening. As I tried to figure out what was going on, Sarah also immediately caught my attention. She too was tense from the sound. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she seemed to be struggling to breathe. At that moment, I noticed something. Rex wasn't in the kitchen. He was at the front door of the house, barking and looking outside. As the sound slowly faded, I felt that we shouldn't be left alone in the room. At that moment, everything changed. I slowly opened the door. A voice whispered inside me, "Is anyone there?" A silhouette from the door began to move silently. I felt the situation was getting worse. I couldn't dare to open the door quickly because I knew everything was going upside down. But Rex's position became even more worrying. Their frightened stomach ulcers indicated that someone was really outside. I focused on the eyes of the door. A sound broke the silence at the door and opened slowly. At that moment, I felt that everything was over. What will happen now? Rex was still barking in fear. My mind was a mess. Was this my husband or someone else? At that moment, Sarah also became quiet, and she looked at me with her eyes and asked, "What should we do?" I just nodded my head and said, "I don't know." Rex's barking stopped, but what I was afraid had increased even more. As soon as the door opened a little more, I stopped my breath. I put my eyes out, but something was missing. The silhouette became more specific for a moment. I saw Sarah's pale face. She was just as fearful of this strange situation as I was. What are we doing now? I couldn't take a step, just seeing the trembling body of Rex. My soul shrunk even more. It was as if he was waiting for something. A voice inside me thought someone was in the house, or at least nearby. After that moment, the feeling of uncertainty began to capture everything. Sarah took another step towards me and whispered, "Is anyone there?" I carefully turned my eyes towards the door, gradually but carefully. I opened the door. The silence became heavy. It was terrible to feel someone so close. It was like the beginning of escape, but I did not know what to do. I made a few steps in and contacted where Rex was standing. I quickly stepped back, but taking a deep breath, I again focused patiently. The silhouette behind the door started contacting quickly. A million thoughts were running in my mind, but everything was a name migration or conflict. It creaked open slowly and everything seemed to slow down or almost come to a stop. A heartbeat raced as if trying to break free from a cage of flesh. I felt shaking spread throughout my body. Rex's barking grew louder, affirming what was a sign of intruders. Everything seemed to sharpen, clearing away fog. The meaning of it all became profound. I shut my eyes against whoever it would be. It was a flurry of movement with a million questions ringing in my mind, and just as I wondered what will happen, I heard a deep voice thunder through the air, freezing everything at that moment. An eerily familiar voice. "I missed you." And there he was, my husband, standing at my doorstep. He wore the same outfit he had put on for his business trip. Everything felt so normal down to the grain of sand under my feet, even though, at that point, my life felt inverted. But there was something strange on his face. The smile was wide, but there was something missing in that smile. It was cold. It was fake. At that moment, a dreadful feeling descended deep within. That smile told me something was not right, that maybe he knew everything. My husband was a stranger. Rex, our dog, usually adored my husband, but tonight, in the midst of this abnormal situation, Rex was acting differently. It was so strange that the fear in my eyes intensified. Normally, this loyal pit bull would happily play with my husband, but now he had retreated. He continued to growl, baring his teeth. I was so anxious that my body tensed up. What was he doing? Why was he acting like this? Rex's behavior emphasized that something was wrong, that something had likely changed. I looked into my husband's eyes, and without saying a word, he eventually moved his hand into his pants pocket. That very act bred fear deep within me. What is he now up to? My breath came quick. With his hand in his pocket, it was no ordinary gesture. Suddenly, everything had heightened in danger. Did he really come back tonight? I kept asking myself. Or had he never left me? My mind kept going over that same question. Everything became appallingly hazy. Had he really gone for any business? Or had he spent half the night watching us? Each question blurred into the next inside me. Fear mounted. It was all too strange to be real. Sarah was still eyeing me, full of alarmed expectations. She must be thinking the same thoughts. My husband's behavior had changed everything. It was like the whole world was about to collapse into disaster under the heel of Rex's uninterrupted barking. The fake smile on my husband's face was present, but there was a certain glint in his eyes. They betrayed that something was wrong, that something dreadful was about to happen. I heard that small voice inside me saying everything was coming nearer, but I could not fathom what it was. At that moment, I understood deep down I wouldn't even be able to breathe freely. My emotions were triggered by the speed at which my husband reached for his pocket. I was unable to understand the movement's purpose because it happened so quickly. Sarah tried to ask me in silence what we ought to do. However, I was unsure of how to respond. I took a slow step back, but my husband's gaze was still fixed on me. I had the impression that everything would come to a head in a matter of seconds. My husband's strange and icy manner, combined with Rex's barking, made me feel even more terrified. I watched as my husband slowly took his hand out of his pocket and something glinted in it. My heart pounded. What was it? What did my husband have in his pocket? As I slowly focused my eyes on the object in my husband's hand, I thought about how chaotic everything was and how difficult it would be to leave this night behind. Amid Rex's continued barking, my husband's fake smile made me feel like everything was an illusion. "Are you really doing this?" I thought. I tried to believe that everything was a game, but a voice inside me said it was all real. My life was flowing in a regular and calm rhythm at 34. I had 3 children and a happy marriage with my beloved husband, David. As our children grew, I tried to teach them how to be a better family. On one hand, while on the other, I maintained the order we had built over the years with David and enjoyed life. Everything in our marriage was going perfectly. Maybe that's why I never expected anything to go wrong. That winter, we set off on a big vacation with David's family. Everything started like a typical holiday as we drove down snow-covered roads. The kids chatted happily in the back seat. David and I shared smiles and sometimes sat quietly together in the car. The time we spent together was precious to us, but when we arrived at David's family's place, things started to go a bit differently than I expected. Ethan was David's family's dog. Although I had been acquainted with him for a long time, but our bond wasn't particularly deep. He was always a sweet and friendly dog, yet nothing else had caught my attention about him. That day, however, the interest he showed in me was a bit too much at first. I didn't notice initially, but it started to catch my attention more and more. Ethan was getting close to me at every opportunity, his eyes seemingly focused on me. There was something in his gaze, a meaning, a curiosity. One evening, as everyone sat in the living room, Ethan stood beside me and watched me for a long time. The softness in his eyes comforted me, but at the same time it prevented me from fully understanding what was going on. Why would a dog look at a person so intently? Why did it seem like he was watching my every move? I felt uneasy inside, but at the same time, Ethan's interest gave me confidence, a moment of peace mixed with worry. It's just a dog, I told myself. These are natural behaviors for dogs. Maybe he likes me. But the uneasiness inside me continued. The next day I was walking in the snow-covered garden in front of the house. Suddenly I was about to slip and fall, and at that moment Ethan appeared beside me. He quickly grabbed me and prevented me from falling. It was such a sudden move that I looked at Ethan in surprise. Could a dog help me like that? Yes, Ethan did. He protected me. On one hand, I felt grateful, but on the other, I felt like something wasn't right. Ethan's interest and the gratitude I felt for him were mixed, but I noticed everything was taking a strange turn. Ethan's interest in me didn't just end there. The intensity in his eyes triggered every emotion within me, but it seemed like he was aware of it too, and this feeling struck me as contradictory. A dog, by nature, creates a certain trust with its owner through the bond they share, but this was different from the bond we form with a human. Ethan, with his interest in me, seemed to show compassion, but this compassion felt like it wasn't entirely mine to have. Does a human feel such closeness to a dog? Do they look at each other this way? Initially, I used to wonder at Ethan's understated excess of interest towards me, but slowly it comforted me. During those times, no matter what was going on in my mind or what I felt, Ethan was always with me. But side by side, an uncomfortable feeling plagued me with every step I took towards Ethan, with every point of focus that I gave him. The closer our bond grew, the more entangled my emotions were. I could feel this strange tension in every glance, every movement. He was just a dog, but I felt so close to him that I was perplexed. I wanted to tell David about this, but I refrained every time. What was I supposed to say? Saying, "Your dog is too interested in me, he's acting strange," would not be natural. The few hours that I spent with David's family were all about those times when Ethan's interest in me was growing and growing with every passing second. This tension was becoming a more burdensome load, but on the other hand, this interest made me more self-assured and filled me with warmth in my heart. Nevertheless, I still could sense that something was not perfectly normal. And then, one night, in a totally unexpected manner, Ethan made a further move, again surprising me. In that instant, I had to confront the unease within myself, for things could never be the same anymore. One morning, on a cold winter day, it was snowing outside and I decided to tidy up around the house a bit while getting the kids ready for school. As I slipped and was about to fall quickly to the ground, a force suddenly caught me. When I opened my eyes, I felt Ethan's paws around my waist. With incredible speed, he had steadied me and prevented me from falling. A wave of relief washed over me, but soon after, unease surfaced. Ethan's paws around my waist, his body right next to mine. I paused. "Thank you," I said with a faint smile, but no matter how much I thanked him, the closeness of that moment left a strange feeling in my heart. He had helped me so reassuringly, so intimately, that I felt something inside me shatter. Was Ethan always this attentive? I was used to the rush of hurried breakfasts at home in the mornings, kids, a big house, and chores. Everything was a race against time, but Ethan's sudden attention made me feel like I was outside of this rush. I couldn't quite understand the reason, but it started to make me uneasy. Was it his loyalty to me, or was there something more? Ethan was always so indifferent and independent, but that day he approached me from a completely different view. At that moment, the touch presented the feeling of faith and warmth that I usually did not feel. Was this a cause of my restlessness? My husband David's relationship went well. We created a lifetime bond and brought the children together, but then it was Ethan, his eyes, his touch. They started to cover me. Although we were nowhere near it, there was something among us. But was it right? The fight in me got stronger. On one hand, Ethan was kind and vigilant and protected me. On the other hand, these were complex feelings that could put my marriage at risk. I suspected if it was safe to spend more time with Ethan. Every day I found myself afraid of where these feelings could take me, and then I waited for the next moment. Will Ethan approach me again and help me like that, or was it just a coincidence? Was the bond between us just a dog and its owner, or was it any deeper? As I pondered how to control these events, only one thing was on my mind. How could I manage these feelings amidst such emotional turmoil? Doing the right thing became increasingly difficult with each passing day. It was night, and the stillness of the house was intoxicating. David and the kids were fast asleep in their rooms, but I was alone. There was a void inside me, as if I was disconnected from the world. I couldn't relax. My mind was constantly occupied with something. Suddenly, Ethan's attention and care for me echoed in my thoughts. I couldn't understand my feelings towards him. On one hand, I felt relieved, but on the other, I felt guilty for the attraction I felt towards him. Suddenly, loneliness covered me even more. As I continued to feel that emptiness, that void, I thought about the interest of Ethan, the feelings that the man whom I considered just a good friend developed in me. Why did they confuse me so much? I can't help but think about it. I found it very weak. Yes, perhaps I was experiencing a moment of high emotion, but zero inside me seemed to be so close. And then these ideas overwhelmed me so much that suddenly Ethan appeared in the room where I was thinking about him. When his eyes focused on me, the rhythm of my heart immediately changed. People have moments of weakness, and it was one of them. As Ethan took some steps towards me, my fear and guilt disappeared. The strong presence I felt next to me assured me for a moment. All confusion and uncertainty disappeared. Being with Ethan gave me a feeling of strength and peace. I felt such a strong attraction that I lost control. I felt lost in that moment. This loss was so personal and special that I did not think much about what it meant. Ethan's feeling interested in me was so captivating and soothing that I could think how special that moment was. But then, when I looked back, I had a mixture of upheaval in my heart and complex feelings in my mind. Should I see that moment as a mistake? I felt a sharp sense of guilt like a knife. Quickly, I tried to suppress this feeling, but no matter how hard I tried, the chaos inside me wouldn't settle. Even though I knew how wrong that moment was, my feelings were so strong: guilt, confusion, relief. I was faced with a whirlwind of emotions. I didn't know what to do. This situation was a loss for me, but also a discovery. Perhaps this closeness with Ethan was just a moment of weakness. But that moment also reminded me of how complex and fragile everything was. What should I do now? How should I feel? Was this experience just a fleeting moment, or was it a reflection of a void inside me? As questions filled my mind, I wasn't yet ready to face the realities behind that moment. I meditated for a while in silence after everything, without having to think about what happened next. But all I knew was that something had indeed changed, and from that time forward, everything would vary. Time alone could tell how different it would be. All of the things that happened to me that night played back in my mind. Every effort brought to erase this memory was fruitless. Many times I wanted to shut my eyes and proceed back to the time when all was fine. As seconds ticked on, though, the guilt inside me increased with every moment. My love for David and my children's trust and love were all getting jumbled within me. On one side, there was the image of a healthy family, while reality on the other was the hurting heart that continued to ache every time such instances were recalled, and how destructive that had been. Keeping that moment with Ethan under wraps seemed like the easiest way to deceive myself into thinking it was an easy way out. But with every sun that rose, my conscience emerged as a different form of this strangulation. This tie I had with him did not fill the need, as it just kept the void full temporarily. The pack came off, and I would know with finality everything would irreversibly change. I wanted David pure to my children, not to hurt them. But there was no map for the treatment of this new emotion toward the actions I had done. What else could my feelings for Ethan be but a mistake? However, as hard as it was to accept the truth, I felt that these feelings had left deep marks on my soul. There was a missing piece inside me. No matter how much I wanted to forget that moment, it always lingered deep down in a corner. My heart constantly reminded me, you shouldn't have done this. No matter how much I ran, my conscience wouldn't leave me alone. I know I don't want to hurt my family. Looking at David's face, I feel the weight of this burden every moment we share. Every smile we remember and every second we spend together makes the mistake I made seem even bigger. I truly don't want to lose this. The fear of losing my family overshadows the guilt I feel, and sometimes ignoring the truth, no matter how hard it is, might be the only thing I can do. Remembering the night with Ethan feels like a fleeting escape, but the void inside me doesn't allow me to dismiss that night as a moment of weakness. I try to console myself, but it doesn't bring me peace. I know now that everything has changed. Instead of facing the reality and explaining what happened, I want to cover it up and move on. But a part of me knows that this is only a temporary solution, and one day I will have to confront this secret. I find myself slowly trying to convince myself to hide my closeness with Ethan and forget. But deep down in my heart, I think this moment will always haunt me. I think my past will always follow me if I keep the dark secret for my family and those I love. It comforts me in some way, but somehow I constantly think of how this secret is going to affect my life. This remorse within me comes as a great burden. No matter how much I try, the inner conflicts in me keep swelling. Although carrying this secret seems like an easy thing to do, just how long can I keep on going with it? Surely everything is going to change, but this secret will for sure turn into daylight with the passing of days. The confusion within me remained. The tie of that instant continued ringing in my dreams at night. But with the morning's cheerful chortles of my children and David's love for me, I was reminded of how priceless all this is. With each passing day, my family bonds grew stronger. The love that I had for my family found a place in the ocean of my inner self, softening down this guilt inside. Ultimately, I understood that this feeling impacted not only me, but my entire family. This realization awoke me to one truth. Our family comes first. My loyalty to David and my children guided me in my true struggle. I was afraid of losing my family, but at the same time, I felt their value even more. They taught me to love and forgive again every day. As I looked into their eyes and remembered how much I loved them, I understood once again how the guilt had taken me captive. But at that moment, I realized how much these feelings were hurting me. I had to be honest with myself. The brief but impactful closeness with Ethan taught me a lot. This event was a turning point that brought me to where I am today. But now I had made my decision. My life with my family and David had to come first. I needed to set aside the moment with Ethan and take firm steps forward. Achieving this, no matter how difficult, was necessary to find inner peace. I could overcome anything, but only if I could forgive myself. Sometimes the challenging moments we face in life help us discover strength. The closeness I experienced with Ethan was a lesson for me, but now that period was over. I needed to turn a new page for my family and my marriage. I had to leave this mistake in the past and take the right steps forward. I could give everything to protect the order I had built with David and my children. I had to achieve this. It might take time for everything to return to normal, but step by step, I would grow stronger each day. I was truly learning to forgive, which meant not only forgiving others, but also forgiving myself. Confronting my inner conflicts made me stronger. Now I could better appreciate the value of every moment spent with my family. I had to learn from my mistakes, but also strengthen my commitment to them. Perhaps one day, all these feelings would remain in the past, and I would forgive myself. But for now, I was fighting harder than ever to protect my family. Sarah finally accepts, looking back and leaving the past behind. Every moment spent with her family makes her feel reborn. Her love for David, the joy of her children, and the warmth of her home give her the strength to start anew. Accepting and learning from her mistakes has matured her. Now she decides to leave the past behind and step into the future. She feels her bond with her family stronger than ever, and all the confusion within her gives way to peace. Sarah has now turned a new page in her life, forgiven herself, and discovered the power of loving again. She has started anew, not only with her commitment to her family, but also with her self-confidence. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. She will build a new life with her family.